Yo, what is up, you guys? Welcome to Maverick Approach. I'm your host, Maverick. Once again, we have the legendary, the one and only Paranoid American. How you feeling, brother?
How are you doing, man? I'm feeling good. It's the day after September 11th, which is kind of like the new July 4th. So I still feel a little bit patriotic and everything. But I'm
Right.
excited for you, bro. You're listed in Forbes now. Congratulations.
Thank
It
you.
took a little while, but you're finally in Forbes.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Well, what he's referring to, you guys, is that I did a piece on Kamala and the whole debate situation and how her earrings were very similar to an auto company or not auto company, a wireless company that has earrings, and they have the first and only in the world, proclaimed by them, wireless audio earrings, and they had a striking resemblance to the one she was wearing. So people were like, there was mixed feelings. They were like, "Oh, it looked just like him." It wasn't. Have you seen him? Did you see him at all?
I did. I saw your breakdown of it. I've seen a bunch of different people and the comparisons, and I see it from all sides. I can see that it looks identical to them, and then there's also people pointing out like tiny little subtle differences. And but what I guess it's all sort of a moot point to me because maybe I'm just a tinfoil hat wearer to the extreme here, but that's the least surprising thing if that were to come out. They're like, oh yeah, she was wearing these earphones. Because even if she wasn't, they've got things called bone conductors that they use for like underwater operations, right? So it's like a
Right.
little thing that you can just clamp to the back of your molar or elsewhere, and just that vibrating. They've got these commercially available. If you go on Amazon or wherever and just search for bone conducting headphones, they kind of clamp to like right under your ear here. So there's a million ways that they could wirelessly communicate and feed information and fact check and like, oh, say this now. And I almost feel that it would be a disservice to the candidate if they weren't doing that, if they didn't have some kind of CIA like sound frequency gun that they can just hit it right on their head, and once it hits their head and it bounces around inside their skull, that turns into like a little internal speaker. I mean, we're talking about like 1950s technology right now.
Yeah. Sorry, I had to mute my mic because I got a cleaner that's cleaning right now. She just decided to put on her vacuum. But yeah, I mean, that's what a lot of people were saying. Like, oh, they would have way better technology now and everything else. It's like, well, would they? I mean, here's the thing: when it comes to the actual company themselves, I believe they're called Ice Ice Auto something. I forgot. Let's pull it up. Actually, let's just dive right into it because I want to show you guys exactly what we're talking about. So the company. Oh yeah, there we go. Icebox Sound. So the CEO came out and said he doesn't know if it actually was their product or not, right?
Smart.
So it says the CEO of Icebox Sound, who created the Nova H1 audio earrings, could not confirm nor deny if Kamala Harris wore their product at their debate. So he said,
The way that that's phrased, cannot confirm nor deny. It's like some classic CIA type response, right?
yeah, yeah. So he says, right here, we do not know whether Mrs. Harris wore one of our products. The resemblance is striking. While our product was not specifically developed for the use of a presidential debates, it is nonetheless suited for it. And that's, I guess, multi. I don't know how to say his first name, Iverson. He's a managing director at Icebox Sound.
I think it's
So,
a
and then he said
genius
he's
response.
currently developing a male version for it, and he's going to offer it to Trump. Great marketing.
This is unbelievable marketing, because even if he saw it and was thinking, oh, that's obviously not ours because of XYZ, that wouldn't be the way to respond. You would respond exactly like this is like, oh, we can't really confirm or deny. Maybe she was. Even if she wasn't, she should have been because we got a great product. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Well,
You know
how? I
what?
mean,
What I'm gonna do? I'm gonna put in my headphones real quick so I can get the best audio. So I can. Speaking of audio, I'll put in my headphones real quick.
all right. Well, as you put in your headphones, I mean, I guess I'll just pontificate a little bit, but this just doesn't seem even like it would be a conspiracy necessarily for a candidate to have this information being piped into him. Uh, it doesn't seem like this would be out of regular. I wonder if there's even like a formal rule against doing something like this, because it feels that in previous debates they've got notes, they've got cards they can work with. And this one, I didn't really see that same analog. I didn't see having like the little index cards that they would like shuffle through and everything. So it just feels like this might be the next iteration of that. I guess if you can do it stylishly with some headphones that look like earrings, why not do that to make it blend more into like the whole aesthetic of everything? Because I don't know how authentic anyone really expects the debates to be entirely. The main thing that I got as a takeaway for like authenticity, because it seemed rehearsed, which isn't a bad thing in my opinion, because they
Right.
know what the cares of everybody are. But what didn't seem rehearsed was just Trump just dropping like things that he saw on TV that day. And I kind of feel like that threw everybody in the audience off, like viewers at home included. Probably people freaking out that were like, this was not on the agenda. Like, I can
Right.
kind of see that, and him doing it on purpose because it's so obviously like not scripted compared to what felt like a really well rehearsed, scripted performance by Kamala Harris.
And that's the thing. People were saying it could be rehearsed, and
Could
that
be.
and
That's silly, bro. I would assume that for the last 2 weeks, 2 months straight, like this has been the focus, has been memorizing all these points. And if he says this, say this, and here's the quips and like all that. It feels like, of course, it's rehearsed. It would be silly not to.
I mean, so do you think it's a rehearsed?
I don't know if Trump and Harris are like rehearsing together, but I
No, no, no. I don't
absolutely.
think that. I don't think that. I
It's
think
like a maybe a bad analogy, but there's like battle rappers out there, and they swear it's like, oh, it's all off the dome, right? It's all like pure freestyle, but like that they all kind of have like a catalog of little verses and little things to throw if they're going up against someone skinny or fat or like what, like all the things they got like a Rolodex mentally of all the things that they can go into and what rhyme with everything, and it's kind of the same thing with these debates where you just know, okay, if they go down these different avenues that I've pre-rehearsed, I just hit the button on this pre-recorded message I've entrained my brain to say, way more so than like on your feet thinking, like just using pure rhetoric and logic in the moment. I think that that's bygone, or at least it doesn't exist in anything that reaches us as the normies and mass media related to politics. We don't get that. All we got are like pre-recorded thoughts.
yeah. And here's the thing too. So speaking of uh, being rehearsed, it says the ABC whistleblower is set to expose a rigged debate, revealing two key claims. Uh, this cleaner is killing me. I understand she wants to clean right now, but the Harris campaign received, I can echo it here, has received a sample question that nearly is identical. Sorry, I'm getting a crazy feedback in this. Um,
I can hear you
it
fine. You want
says
me to
that
read it while
Harris.
it's going on?
Uh, you say what?
You want me to read it while it's going on?
Yeah, yeah, you can read because I'm hearing myself in
Yeah, well,
these.
so here's the bullet points. It said that the Harris campaign received sample questions that were nearly identical to those asked during the debate. And two, that there was a promise that Donald Trump would be fact checked while Harris would not face any scrutiny. So there was almost like a prearrangement that's being implied here that, yeah, anything that Trump says, we'll pounce on it, and anything that you say, we'll let it slide. And then it says the
Right.
whistleblower also points to several other elements designed to give Harris a significant edge in the debate. I wonder if any revelations will use the secret communication devices. I don't know. Me, am I so far gone that all of this is like not even milk toast to me? Like this is just like the parsley that comes on the main plate. Like everyone's focused on like what the parsley tastes like. Like this is silly a little bit.
I don't know. I feel like she was really sharp. It's like she's almost too good, and I don't think she's like won the debate by any reach, but she's better than what she used to be, or what is what we're used to, right?
See, I think exceeding expectations is a win in itself, at least in the context of what she's trying to do. Because remember, this was like one of the candidates that got no support on her first run as president by herself, right? So
Mhm.
now it's really the don't vote for Donald Trump candidate, regardless of gender, name, race, beliefs, policies, anything, right? It's just the antithesis to Trump at this point.
Yeah, and that's what I feel like. I feel like it's more so let's go against Trump versus we actually like her and we want her to actually be the president. It's just like a hate Trump campaign at this point.
Well, at this, like since day one, I think I don't think even when Biden got in, I think it was the same thing. I would love to sit down and talk to someone that during the 2020 election was like, no, no, I really do think out of all the candidates that were presented to us before this whole process started, I think Uncle Joe was the right guy for from day one. I don't know. It seems weird to me, but again, I'm incredibly biased and I'm so far gone that I don't know what reality is anymore.
Yeah, she to be honest, she's worse. She's worse than him, to be honest. Like for me, I don't know how everybody else feels. Um I think she's worse than Joe Biden, to be honest.
Well, her trajectory is still on the up, right? Like she's still making a name for herself at this point, whereas Biden was literally and metaphorically sunsetting, right? Like he had already done all the things he was going to do, and president felt like the last big hurrah that he kind of had, and he barely even made it out of that one. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
so like they've got completely different motivations as to who they want to impress and what they want to do with the rest of this. Because Biden was solidifying the Biden legacy, which I'm sure we haven't heard the end of. But Harris is still like cutting her teeth on all of this.
You don't think Biden's done?
I don't think
I think
I
he's
don't think the
finished his
Biden
career. Like
dynasty.
after this, it's a
I think
wrap.
Joe Biden the person's done, but the dynasty I think is not done. Like they actually go super deep, and I believe that they've got some connections with like Clinton's in that like that whole sort of machine that developed. I don't think that's gone anywhere. Like those connections that got his son into high places are going to exist for the rest of that family and their ancillaries for like beyond our lifetimes.
Right, exactly. I mean, is anybody else in his family in politics? I mean, we already know Hunter. He's washed. He's beyond
Is he?
washed.
I don't know, man. Just
You don't think
who,
Hunter's washed? You don't think he's
who
done?
I mean, I can see why that's definitely a rational take, and I don't think it's silly to think that. But I also think that America, out of any country, loves a prodigal son story. It's like one of the best stories in the whole book, right? Is the return of the prodigal son, and he's kind of been set up exactly as that. You know what I mean? Like he could be the ultimate I don't think it's likely, but I do think that it is a distinct possibility. And if not him, it could be maybe like his like bastard strippers kid or whatever. That could be this next version of this dynasty. Because I mean, I really do believe in that concept of the whole King Kill 33 and taking out political energy and then rediverting it. And I think that Joe Biden, like his political capital, doesn't just dissipate, and it definitely doesn't all just go directly to Kamala Harris. I know that that's what her goal probably is, but I think that there's actual Biden political capital that's in the bank somewhere. Like we don't know about it, but I'm sure like Ukrainian officials probably know about it, and other people in DC know certain skeletons and certain favors that need to be followed up on. I'm just making these assumptions, but I mean, he made it all the way to freaking president as maybe not the most meritorious appointment. So I feel like he's got a Rolodex that's got secrets in it.
I mean, could be because I mean, well, for one, I don't think he's real. Like, I think the real Joe Biden is out of here, so they can keep cloning him until the end of time, and they can
Well, the
or
Rolodex will outlive the man. I guess that's what I'm saying, and that's
yeah,
the
yeah,
real
exactly.
legacy is
And that's
whoever's
the thing.
got
Like when it
access.
comes to uh the like you said, the man, but like they can remix him and put him out again in maybe 10, 20, 30 years. So, and that's a whole nother rabbit hole, you guys. I really don't think that's Joe Biden. I pulled up a lot of evidence on why I think
If there were like
otherwise.
a pecking order of information, as let's say that something's happening that they need to know about, do you think Kamala Harris was getting all the information that Joe Biden was getting, or do you think that Joe who got the information first? Did anyone even update Joe on anything that was happening, or were they just like, here's the things that you say out loud if anyone talks to you today, versus giving him like a full briefing, or
I
maybe
think
did
there's a
neither of
briefing
them get
of
the
some sort.
briefing?
I think it's a briefing of some sort. I think they have to give him enough marching orders to do what he needs to do,
Do you
and then
think
go from there.
Biden was ever giving marching orders to anyone, or it was all like like he was at the bottom of the pyramid?
No, I think he's probably middle of the pyramid. I would say that. I would think that they give him enough to function, and they give him marching orders, and they tell him just enough to run the country
So
while
would you
they
say
do whatever.
Kamala is at the same level, or do you think she was like on a rung above or below Biden before she started running from before he stepped down?
I think she's climbing the ranks
So maybe
because
she might even actually had more power than Biden at some point.
yeah, yeah. Don't forget she was a prosecutor, so like she can put a lot of things in place as far as being head of the Senate because she's a VP. Also, she has a lot of ties with the judicial system. Obviously, she has a lot of pull there. So yeah, she's a powerful player. I will give her that. So and then that I feel like this is just another power play because they ran a coup on Joe Biden, and he thought he was running up until the point he wasn't. Right. So like he was like, "Oh, I'm for sure running." Because they asked him, "Hey, are you staying in the race?" He was like, "100%, I'm staying in. 1,000%." Then the next week he's out. Like he had no idea. I don't think he had any idea. He even said it. He said he got pushed out.
I believe that. I believe he had no idea. Did you see? He put a Trump hat on the other day,
Oh, we
and
got to pull that up.
I
We got to
could have
pull that up.
sworn, dude. I was positive it was AI. There's no way. I was like, of course he didn't. Well, like, how would that even happen? But then again, man, I've lost complete touch with reality at this point.
Yeah. When I saw that, I was trying to get the context of it. Like I don't know if he actually.
I don't think he realized what he was doing. I think what he saw was an American hat. He didn't realize it was a Donald Trump hat. That's my guess.
Huh. Let's see. Well,
Yeah, that's
here.
yeah. There he is putting it on. No, I don't know. I don't know the context if he knew what he was doing as he did it. But what a photo op to follow the night after the debate. Right, this happened within 24 hours afterwards.
Yeah, that's you can't make this up. You can't make this up. Like this is literally a reality show because it's like you would think this is like an AI photo. He actually did this shit, which is hilarious.
And honestly, if we want to get deep for a second, and never always serious, but a little serious, but Joe Biden putting on the Trump hat, Donald Trump talking about people eating cats in the middle of the debate, like all of these things, and with all of these AI memes that are exploding now, with Trump like saving geese and kittens and stuff. Now everybody knows how easy and how realistic all this stuff is. It really does feel like they're just messing with reality at this point. Like
Yeah,
just throwing out just random, I saw this on TV. Like, what a weird feedback loop in that news happens from certain, biased angles, turns into actual news that gets covered by the mainstream, and then the people that start some of these things can now cite the after effects as the proof, which turns into the most perfect feedback loop. This is kind of how Mockingbird operated, but now Mockingbird's almost been co-opted by private industry. And even if you've got a large Twitter following, if you got 500,000 to a million plus people, you can start your own little mini Mockingbird campaign.
Right. Yeah. It has that vicious cycle, and kind of
Is
turns
this
into
real?
Yeah, look at this. It's a tutorial. This is an actual YouTube video of how to properly peel a cat for lunch.
Now, I have to know, did this come out before or after all of this?
This is 2 years ago.
Okay. So this wasn't just done to milk a current trend.
No, like if you look at the post right there, it says 2 years ago. So, I mean, and this isn't new, you guys. Like, people from other countries, they have different traditions, they have different living, conditions. So they eat cats, dogs, squirrels, all types of stuff. So this isn't nothing new. So like when people are saying like, "Oh, my cat's missing," and like even this video right here, there's like a 30-minute video. Like this is a clip of it, but he's interviewing everybody in Springfield, Ohio, and he said they're catching cats. They're a van pulled over and had 100 cats in it with Haitians in it. That's a crazy claim, but it's multiple people saying this.
Well, so I got into a long conversation about this the other day, and it's this weird catch-22 dynamic, right? That if it's isolated enough, if it's happening rare enough that only a few people are hearing or seeing about it, it's concerning regardless, right? But what happens is that if no one takes them seriously or looks into it, which I guess they're supposed to have a task force that are dedicated to looking at this, because since it came up on the presidential debates, Springfield municipality actually had to come out and say like, okay, we're going to look into this now. But it almost feels that if it's isolated enough that like this is the most proof that we've got, a little snapshots here and there, the only real way that anyone is going to end up caring is when it becomes so prevalent that now like the police find it happening on the body cams, or that more importantly, if someone records somebody else seeing the police seeing it happen, that's when it really needs to be taken seriously. Because just because it's on a body cam, it's like I don't want to be involved in this story. You know what I mean? I don't want to be on national news. I'm just going to go ahead and look the other way. But if someone records them seeing it, and then it's like, so anyways, that's the next iteration. But that's only going to happen if it becomes so prevalent that now it's like a much bigger issue than just isolated events. That said, I'm on the fence on this, man. I don't know. If it's like
that's what I was going to ask you. Like, are you accepting this? Do you think it's just isolated incidents, or like
I've got a split mind, right? So like in a general sense, I don't even really it's probably isolated, but I also don't know if I'm like morally opposed to people hunting wild animals, even if they're unconventional. I'm not including domesticated cats and dogs, but like it's a wild goose or a wild duck or something. I don't know. I feel like I'm on the fence because I also grew up in upstate New York, and I had family and friends that might not have always followed the exact deer hunting laws, because literally they would hunt deer in order to eat. It wasn't like a fun thing. Like they needed it to eat, and they didn't really care what the law was. They're like, oh, I got a good shot, I can feed my family, so I'm going to do this. So this is just another iteration of that. They just happen to not have rifles and going out into the Catskills and taking out deer, but he's kind of in an urban environment. So on that regard, I don't know how I feel. I don't know if I'm pro. I'm not pro, but I don't know if I'm super opposed to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because like, where does the line start and end for like which animals we eat? And here's the thing, I think the biggest problem with this is that regardless of what other countries or other people from other countries, whatever they eat, that's fine. But when it comes to being in America and they're coming over stealing cats and dogs and whatever else, geese, I heard they're stealing goose from or geese from the parks. in like the lakes or whatever, that you're disrupting the ecosystem. You're
Right. Well,
disrupting the neighborhood.
that's the other line of thinking that I've got too is that if it's isolated, I don't know if legally I'm like everyone needs to go to jail when you start passing laws, but if all of a sudden everyone's doing it and now there's no wildlife in parks anymore because everyone's just taking them out and cooking them, like that actually is dramatically changing the landscape of not just like the physical world that we're living in, but also mentally. It completely starts skewing, I guess, how I've always seen the world. Like I've never gone to a park, and maybe this speaks from a place of privilege of just growing up in America. But even if you're struggling, I don't know how many people are going to a public park and like making eyes at the ducks in the water. Like, yeah, that's how I'm gonna solve this hunger issue. I'm just gonna start taking out all the wildlife in this public park. That feels like a societal slip in some way. What like beyond what the legal ramifications and all that might be, and even moral, it's almost like, would you prefer if the house was the same and the rent was the same in two different towns, and in one town everyone it was just open game on all of the wildlife in the public parks, and in the other town it wasn't against the law but just no one did it? It just feels like, I don't know. I would feel more likely to go to the park where there's going to be wildlife versus the one where it's like Mad Max.
Yeah, because we start to slip into, like you said, we start to slip into something else,
And there's
and it's
other
like,
options, bro. There's so many other options. If you come to this point where you're going to eat a cat, you've ignored a lot of other social services that I think that are offered.
yeah, because you start looking at other things like, oh, that dog looks good, and maybe that horse tastes good tonight, and what else
It's
can we
the
get?
slippery slope of animals.
It can go far. We can keep moving the goalposts, and that's like, I mean, if you look at this right here, like, and that's the thing. Like, another issue is the immigration issue. So you're coming over here, not being, a ruly citizen or a ruly immigrant. If you're going to come over illegally, at least, respect the country and the rules. But you're not even doing that. You got the Venezuelans, tearing stuff up. They're taking over apartment buildings. Now you have the Haitians, doing all this stuff. And I only go by what people are reporting on the ground, seeing pictures, video. I only go by that stuff, and I don't single anybody out. I only go by the facts, and this is what's happening, right? So, like, people were multiple reports were saying, "Hey, this is what's happening," and then ABC tried to debunk it during the debate, and they were like, "No, that's not true." And Trump was like, "Well, I seen it. I seen it everywhere. I seen it on TV. I seen it on social media." And they're like, "No, it's not happening." We talked to one of the directing managers in the city, and they said there's no credible reports of people eating dogs or cats or whatever the case may be, geese, and they just brushed it off.
Well,
So I'm
dude,
like, okay, so it is true.
there was another really good analog to that during the debates too, that I think fits perfectly into this discussion, and that was when Kamala or maybe the moderators did like a fact check on Trump after he had said something, and they made this point how crime has been on like a huge decline, and he was like, "Well, that's." I'm paraphrasing. He was like, "Well, that's because the FBI stopped reporting violent crimes and certain types of crimes. Of course, it looks like it's going to go down." And then
Right.
it was just met with a big "nuh-uh," like that was the general response. And it feels like the same thing here, that just because the local authorities have not 100% confirmed any of this doesn't mean they haven't taken reports, and that there's been like the public town hall meetings where people, but even those, it was like, I saw a guy or I heard from my neighbor that they saw or they heard. Because again, if it's isolated enough, it will be like finding a needle in a haystack to, if like five people are doing it, to just catch all five people those doing it in the act on video. Like that's not really how it works. It first
Right.
starts with suggestions of it. But let's just assume that the fact checks were right. I know that's silly, but let's just assume that like ABC is right and Kamala Harris is right and it's all nonsense. It's still the ultimate smart move to say this crazy outlandish thing, because the underlying context here, even if you remove the eating cats and dogs thing, it's about the sheer volume of immigrants that are moving into these communities that are new, and maybe the lack of assimilation. So even if like on the surface the exoteric version of this is like they're eating cats and dogs and people laugh about it, the esoteric and the deeper version is, hey, look into the influx of immigrants into very specific communities and how it kind of rotates. Because remember when it happened in Martha's Vineyard, and that was a huge deal, and it got, but if it happens into other towns, specifically places that used to have lots more manufacturing, meat packing, lots of this kind of like manual labor in those towns, it's not really going to be taken the same way as Martha's Vineyards, where it's an entire public-facing service industry. So it's weird, this dichotomy that people dance around.
Yeah, and again, it's like you said, like the whole just listening to a sentence saying, "Oh, they're eating cats and dogs and geese," it throws you off. And it's just like, no, it's really happening. And it's like it's easy to debunk something when it sounds ridiculous versus actually doing the research and seeing what's happening. Like even this woman right here. So her dad is actually Haitian, and she explains like not only they do this, but it's part of their culture. They do voodoo and all this other stuff, and it's nothing new really. She was just saying like, you know, my father and I, we used to be close, but we're estranged now. She was just saying that, all of them have been coming over here and been doing that. So it's not really a new thing. I think it's just being highlighted even more, and it's just getting more aggressive because of the immigration issue. But yeah, she's on the ground too, and she's like, yeah, like I've seen this because I am Haitian, and so and again, it's not just singling out one group of people because I mean, the Chinese, it's been a known thing for a long time that they eat dogs, right? So it's already been proven. They do that. They
Well,
they
there's
eat, I don't know
festivals
if they
that
eat
are,
cats, but I know they eat dogs.
they have festivals based on this. Yeah.
Right. Right. I think they made it where was that? It might have been I don't think it was China. I think it was South Korea. I did a story on it not too long ago about I don't know if it was early this year or late last year, but it was something about a specific dog that they were finally banning, like, hey, don't eat this dog anymore. So I do remember doing a story on that. So that's a known thing, though. So how far fetched is this?
I mean, culturally too, the some of these places where it's normalized, right? It's because I think at a deep level, maybe not as much now as it was even like a century ago, but let's say like dog, like a culture that's acceptable of eating dogs. In those cultures, usually there's lots of stray dogs, and they're not necessarily seen with the same reverence as Americans. In fact, Americans are kind of outside the norm when it comes to like the way that they treat dogs and pets and animals in general. But beside that, beside not being American about your dogs, they're also almost like your competition out there. Like if you're the type of person that's maybe going to go hunt a duck or going to go hunt some other wild animal, you're competing with stray dogs that are also going to be hunting those animals. So now there's a completely different relationship between you and dogs as an entire species, right? Like now
Mm-hmm.
they're adversarial to you, as opposed to like, I just don't prefer dogs, but there's still these like companion sort of things in America. That's not really how it's seen in every other country in the world. And if, like that lady was saying, you import a whole entire group of people that don't care about assimilation, then yeah, of course that same mentality is going to come with them. And if they get to form their own community in such a volume, for better or worse, right? Like if you move into a community and it's all just thousands and thousands of nothing but people exactly like you, then your laws are going to supersede whatever enforcement might be around. What is the police force going to send 50 people to take on 20,000? So at a certain point of force, if they don't want to send the National Guard in over like a cultural disagreement and a way to like not assimilate, then I think they just kind of let it slide. If you look at sort of where Elon Omar, I guess, comes from, was it Minnesota? and there's like an entire portions of that entire area that don't necessarily follow the laws of the rest of the municipality and like the city, because there's such a cultural divide that it doesn't make sense to enforce laws that no one in those communities respects or even wants enforced. So it's weird. Like it's a shifting landscape, I think.
Right, exactly. I forgot to mention those glasses are super dope. We were talking about them offline, but I gotta give me some. Where'd you get those?
I got a supplier, man. I'll hook you up. I've actually got
Okay,
a whole box full of these because so many people keep asking for them. I just haven't listed them yet.
okay, and they take double A.
Double A, yeah. They got USB like rechargeable ones too, but nothing
Oh,
beats just
nice.
having batteries on the go.
Okay, I'm gonna have to copy one of those. Those remind me of you remember have you seen the movie Last Dragon? I'm pretty sure you've seen the movie Last Dragon.
Oh, a while ago.
It reminds me of these joints right here. Let me see. Show enough glasses.
Oh, I haven't heard shown up in a while.
These right here. Remember these? Oh wait, hold on. It's not pulling up. There we go. But yeah, reminds me of those.
I mean, all I need is a little Lego Japanese flag. I can just pop it right in the middle, and it's perfect.
Yeah, that's what it reminds me of. It reminds me of that. Well, actually, Kanye copied those. But I remember Kanye had a moment. I think it was like his third album where he brought back the shutter glasses. And people were like, "Oh my god!" Like it's a new thing. But yeah, I love
Max
these.
Headroom too, I think. Max Headroom used to rock the shutter shades.
Did he?
You remember Max Headroom?
Yeah, Max Headroom. Let's see.
Do you
Did he
know
wear
where
the
that
glasses?
came from? That came from an actual real hack at some point.
Yeah, you're right. Oh, that was a crazy. Yo, if you guys don't know about Max Headroom, okay, for all my younger generation, Max Headroom was I guess he was a personality, like TV personality, but he was like AI back in the day. That's how they kind of like pegged him to be like AI, and he used to like say stuff and stutter and in an 80s kind of way, really cool. I don't think he had the shutter shades though. Let me
Yeah, maybe
see.
not. You know what? He had the pattern of shutter shades behind him in the background, and then like the big shades in front, but it never the combination of the two.
Right, right. But there was a hack. I don't know what news station it was, but it was based off of Max Headroom was based off of him, and nobody knew who they were, but they like patched into the broadcast, and which was like I don't know how they did it back in the day because like they had to have some serious like technology. I don't know, like they must have been
Or
like some high level hackers to do it back in the day to
that it
like
was like some ham radio hackers, but it wouldn't have been as hard because at that point all communication was not encrypted or secured or anything. It was just that
true.
if you could emit a more powerful signal than the antennas that the station was emitting, then you could take over their station. You know, like anyone that was tuned into channel 7, if you could just pump out, a signal that was twice as powerful as theirs, then you get it. Anyone that before digital radio was all the rage, and if you were just listening to like FM and you're going on a cross country trip, and you know how like two stations will start battling each other, and like one will win for 30 seconds and then it'll lose to another one, and like eventually you'll pass a certain point or you'll go by a mountain, and then it's like, and then it fully switches over to the next station. It was kind of like that, the exact same principle, but just TV waves.
Got you. Yeah, I found that really interesting because I was like, damn, how they do that back in the day? But you're right. It probably wasn't any kind of cybersecurity back in the day. But that's him right there. That's the original Max
The real
Headroom,
one, yeah.
the real one. And nobody knew who, like, they never found the people who did it. It was the strangest thing ever. And I've always wondered about, like, yo, what was that even about? Like, they like some stuff you couldn't hear. Like, go check out the video; it's on YouTube. But there's stuff that he was saying that you couldn't make out, and you could. But what was the point of this? Like, what do you think this was?
I think if you remember the movie They Live, it has a scene that's very similar where everyone's watching like the normal news broadcast, but then someone takes over the station and they drop this information like they're out there, they're coming to get us and all this. And then it goes back to the regular station. They fix the problem, whatever. Like, oh, excuse us for that difficult, operation there. And
Yeah,
they
I
keep
remember that.
going. And I almost think that the Max Headroom character that came after this real version of it, like the commercial version that they leaned into, was probably conveniently as like a smokescreen to just like, hey, do you remember Max Headroom? Oh yeah, that cool guy that used to introduce music videos or whatever, sold Pepsi at one point. And
Right.
then you just kind of move on, and not as many people out of the tiny niche that even knows what Max Headroom was, that it was based on a real thing, and then even smaller on like what did they even say in that original thing. So that, I think all of that, it's too convenient to not be like someone adopted it and was like, hey, we can play off the lore, but we can also sort of obscure the real original message and erase this concept in people's minds of how easy it would be to just take over airwaves and put your own programming out there, because
That's
that's the
that's
last thing
very
you want.
true.
You've got control over the flow of information. You don't want someone else to know how easy it is to take that from you.
Right. That's very true. Great point. Because I never knew like exactly, and I know we're going down the rabbit hole on this, you guys, but we're going to go back to the debate stuff. But like, this is why you're here. This is why we
Well,
talk
I,
about
I
these
can link
topics.
this back
We
to the
have
debate
tangents all the
too.
time.
This has a direct correlation with the debate, because the same way that you want to suppress the original Max Headroom with the commercial version that you control, because you don't want to give up this illusion of how hard it is to control information. It's not hard. The same thing happened in the debate. The same thing where we're going to fact check Trump and ABC. Of course, ABC is going to freak out over something Trump's like, I saw it on social media, I saw it on the
Right.
internet, because ABC, it's their entire business model to tell you that social media and your neighbors and normal people, they cannot be the source of information. You have to get your information through fact-checked ABC, Disney, Hulu Plus conglomerate, right? Like that's the only place,
Which
because
is
they've got the
bullshit. Guys,
resources.
like that to me screams like a totalitarian, post-apocalyptic, all types of, the movies come to mind, V from Vendetta type shit, like where everything is controlled, all your media, all your food, all these different things are controlled, and like nobody, like he said, nobody's getting the real source of information where they need to. They're just getting fact checked all the time, and like, no, this is what really happened. So like we're headed towards that. We're leaning into that every single day. So this
But
is very, actually very like this is like prophetic almost, because it shows, like you said, like how easy it was to get hacked into a major news network, and then they're like, oh well, here's this character, and that's where it really came from, and they threw up a smokescreen. Same thing. No, that's a great point. That's a
the
great
other
point.
thing too about ABC, and I don't know your interactions with like authority throughout your life, but mine, whether it was police or teachers or whatever it was, any figures of authority, but I had always, maybe because I'm a jerk, but I always notice this trend where even when they realize they're wrong, if you call them out and you correct them on something they're supposed to be the authority on in a public setting, right? If you call them out on that, even if they know they're wrong, they can't admit it, because by doing so, they're giving up some of that illusion of authority, whether it's in a classroom or whether it's in some interaction with getting pulled over or whatever, right? So now it's like they got to dig their heels in just out of the sake of remaining the authority and not deferring and not being like, oh, you know what, you were right. Maybe I was wrong bringing that up. So ABC can never ever take that approach where they say we don't think that's true. We reported and we debunked that, for someone to be like, oh, well, here's evidence of it actually being true. There's no situation when with an anchor or a moderator in real time would be like, oh, wow, you're right, we got that wrong. You know what I mean? Like they'd be out of a job immediately, because
Immediately.
they're giving up
Immediately.
their power.
Oh, by the way, what we said last night was completely bullshit and
The
not
way they
factual.
do it, dude,
But
it's
sorry
so
about that. They would never
it,
say that.
and it's so predictable, because the way they do it is they announce their version of it on the front page above the fold in like 24-point font and a headline, And then if they ever make a retraction, it's always on like page 12 in 10-point font buried under obituaries and stuff, as a technicality. That's really the only way that newspapers or any media outlets ever really correct themselves. It's always in some weird footnotes that no one's going to read.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, by the way, in page 57, small print. Yeah, they always do that. And then going back to this, where I got featured yesterday on New York Post, I made a video about Kamala Harris's earring, and it says Kamala Harris debate earrings trigger conspiracy theories among Trump supporters. Would you look at that? So, this whole
on
thing
9/11 of all days. You got
Oh
you
yeah,
got
crazy, right? Like all this,
theories.
I was thinking that. I'm like, damn, all this is like unfolding on 9/11, which is like a very, I mean, obviously interesting day, because, and I did a video on how like they've been showing us for the past 33 years, 33 cycle, like it's a 33-year cycle and all that stuff. So it was very telling. I'm like, on this day that we have all this traction and another conspiracy that happens on 9/11, which was one of the biggest conspiracies, which is not a conspiracy at all, but you have to say conspiracy, entertainment purposes only, of course. But yeah, this happened on 9/11. They gave me a whole piece. I'll go down to my section. So they're saying that these are the earrings right here. Instead of the Nova H1 audio earrings. So we'll go to that. Where is it at? Right here. So I posted on it. I said, you're busted. I knew Kamala was wearing an earpiece. Here it is. Here's their Kickstarter. We'll go to their Kickstarter. And it's not far-fetched, you guys. Like, that looks just like the earrings. I'm sorry.
And I just want to just ask a hypothetical that you can actually answer here. It's not totally rhetorical, but do you think that the leader of the free world, that whoever's running the absolute presidency in power, the seat of power right now in America, would have the resources to take the technology from this Kickstarter project that had 300 backers and combine it with Tiffany jewelry? Do you think that technology is just so far out of the hands of the people running this country that they just are incapable of making a Wi-Fi Tiffany set of earrings?
Exactly. You know how easy that would be, especially that they already look like it, and they're like, "Oh, it's Tiffany earrings, you guys." Yeah, well, they can take a set of Tiffany earrings and then combine it with this technology. How hard is that? That's not that far fetched. The company raised $100 grand. Then I believe they went bankrupt. They went out of business for a while. Some of them did go out. I believe that some other people were waiting on their product and whatnot because they were trying to, ramp up production. They ran out of money, perhaps. But did they? I mean, when you raise $100 grand and you're getting your products sold and everything else, they were at CES last year, which is the biggest electronic convention. So it seems like they were doing well, and they just go out of business and then they kind of fizzle away. It's like maybe they have some type of government contract. That's not out of the question, right? So I don't know. I thought it was pretty interesting. And then the CEO made a statement too.
This actually brings up an interesting thought too, because I know we're talking about in the year 2024 whether or not a presidential debate had like a wireless earpiece, but it almost seems that in a generation from now, which is what, like 30 years, so by 2050, 2054, it almost feels like we're going to have presidential candidates that have neural links installed in their brains. Literally, like, it's not even a science fiction claim. Like, that seems like a very real. So now, what happens to this argument of, because everyone's going to have the potentially have a neural link embedded in their brains? So what does it matter if you've got wireless earphones that in the near future they could just be real-time Googling and sending thoughts to AI and be like, hey AI, tell me how to phrase this thing, and you're never hearing their actual genuine thoughts. So I don't know. It feels like a facade.
Yeah, the guy now who has a Neuralink, who's the first recipient of it, he's I believe he's a quadriplegic, and they showed him just thinking about it, moving the mouse on the screen, and that's reality. It's right now. They already done it. It's happening. So his thoughts are manifesting on the screen, and
And
I
they were
so
doing this with monkeys again a generation ago, 30 years ago. These same exact technology, just improved, made smaller, more efficient. But they had implants in monkeys, and monkeys could figure out how to move the cursor around on a screen and play games. So this
right,
is again, this is like outdated tech. So whatever Kamala, like to think that Kamala couldn't have Tiffany earrings made. I mean, again, I would take it a step further. There's probably like some ray gun that like a sound frequency gun that they're just like beaming at her head at all times, and that just conveys the thoughts directly into her mind. Like she doesn't even have to think half the time. Like the thoughts are just provided for her.
right. I mean, my research has brought me to a lot of stuff. I mean, they declassified stuff that you wouldn't believe. Like they had one thing where it was a heart attack gun, where this was back in the 70s,
This is the
and it's
church
a gun.
committee hearings.
Yeah, and they shoot a dart, it dissolves, causes cardiac arrest, doesn't look like you got shot at all. This is declassified. This is like public knowledge now. And they had that. They declassified it in the 70s. They had it before that. So who knows? So this is like elementary at this point. Like Tiffany earrings with an earpiece, like it's not that hard,
Yeah,
guys. It's
welcome to
wireless.
1950.
Yeah. So, and then for Forbes and I believe I was on Forbes, New York Post, Daily Mail, MSN, like they all picked it up, and I'm like, why are you guys so interested in what a conspiracy theorist has to say about this? Like, are you trying to make sure that public opinion stays with you? That I'm getting so much traction on this because it makes sense. So, and
They all
funny
want to be
enough,
Snopes now. Every outlet wants to be their own version of Snopes with their little BS meters.
yeah, and I'll show you something that's pretty interesting.
And
Um,
I think the conspiracy theory moniker too, like now it's public entertainment because influencers and personalities are conspiracy theorists versus 30 years ago a conspiracy theorist was just people that were looking into these things, and there was really no such thing as a personality.
right, exactly. So they are like, this is uncharted territory, so we got to get ahead of it every time. So they're sorority sisters. This is one of the moderators from the debate. Turns out they went to the same sorority. So isn't it supposed to be non-biased? And it looks like she has the same earrings on too. So
They're like BFF earrings. They link up. They put them together and they like recharge. I mean, this is almost feels just like a smaller, less significant version of when we had Bush running against Kerry, right? Because at that point we had two different presidents that were both Skull and Bones members, which I'd argue is way more exclusive than being in any sorority or any fraternity. Like this is like one of the most exclusive fraternities, and the same thing happened. They made it seem like it was this silly thing to connect those two together. And in fact, this one, like I get triggered from this one all the time. But do you remember the "Don't tase me, bro" meme? Don't tase me, bro, and like
yeah,
it was a whole thing, and everyone, and it's been parodied in movies and TV shows. But that guy got tased, and he said, "Don't tase me, bro," as a 100% direct result of him asking John Kerry in a public forum, would it matter to the American people that he and his opponent were both Skull and Bones members? Like, should we be concerned that you and Bush are both members of Skull and Bones, this elite CIA, back fraternity? And at that point, Kerry was like, no, let him finish. But someone else had called his card and said, go tase that, go get this guy out of here. And even as Kerry's like, no, let the man speak, he probably knew that no one's going to let him talk because he said the thing you're not supposed to say out loud. In fact, I believe one of the rules of Skull and Bones is if anyone mentions it in public, you're supposed to get up and leave the room immediately. Like, don't even acknowledge, you just exit. But he couldn't do that in that situation. But again, like this concept of having like fraternal and like sorority connections within these political spheres. Nothing new. All the original presidents were Masons, right? Like the Masons planned the entire American Revolution in a literal secret society. Like you had to do that as a secret society. So that's the very core foundation of this entire country is politics run off secret societies. So it would almost shock me more that in 2024 that we'd abandon that.
Yeah, and there it is. Don't tase me, bro.
Everyone remembers him saying it, but very little do people remember why he got tased. Like, what was he saying that made him get tased? It was asking Kerry about Skull and Bones.
Yeah, Skull and Bones. If you know, you know. Yale is where the Skull and Bones originated from, and that's where Bill and Hillary met. That's where a lot of presidents run through there. Funny enough, jumping to Skull and Bones real quick and talking about Bush and everything else, George Bush Jr. graduated from Yale in 1968. Now, why am I bringing that up? What's the significance of 1968, do you ask? Well, remember that 33-year cycle I just mentioned about 9/11? So it's 33 years from 1968 to 2001. And there's a long list of pretty much a roadmap of programming of 33 years, and 33 years being the highest level of Freemasonry. It was a 33-year cycle. So George Bush graduates from Yale, 1968. That same year, 9/11, the 911 code, the emergency code was created. Same year. That same year, the World Trade Center was constructed in 1968. That same year, the New York Jets, I'll pull this up, the New York Jets won the Super Bowl. That very same year, 2001, A Space Odyssey comes out in 1968. What are the chances? So you got who, George Bush, you got what, the New York Jets, you got when, 2001, A Space Odyssey, and then of course where, New York Jets, right? So like what are the chances? And then the date, 911, the code was created that year. Like how does all that line up? Like do you think that's coincidence?
It's a bad joke, but whenever someone says what are the chances, well, turns out 100%. That was the chances, was 100%.
Right. Yeah, what are the chances? What are the chances? Well, looks like we're 10 for 10 on that one. So but yeah, like that is like it's very telling. And it's a 33-year cycle. Like you got to look at the numbers. Like Jesus died at the age of 33, Freemasonry 33. So like they use these numbers in a lot of ways. So but yeah, and then 9/11 just was the other day, and which was really weird. Like going back to how I was featured, all this went down on 9/11, which is very like I don't know.
Well, there's another aspect to this too. If you're playing the long game and you know that AI for the next rest of our lifetimes plus is going to be constantly learning and just digesting massive sort of trends, and that's going to go into its long-term memory bank on how it's going to rule the world for us for time memoriam, right? But part of that is feeding algorithms and feeding the human psyche the concept that whenever 9/11 comes up, crazy conspiracy theories. Here's a whole bunch of them. Here's a bunch of wild conspiracy stuff. So that now, even subconsciously, you start to associate the date of September 11th with like, oh, this is the day when all the crazy conspiracies come out of the woodwork. You know what I mean? So that way, if there ever really is a disclosure or some sort of breaking news about 9/11 in particular, it just automatically gets filed under that. Up another one of those crazy conspiracy. The same reason that the very phrase conspiracy theory was sort of perpetuated by intelligence agencies after the JFK assassination. So now, whenever someone started bringing anything up, you could just be like, "Oh, conspiracy theory," and it takes the wind out of the sails. It's a cue for everyone else that's in earshot to be like, "Oh, okay, I can go back to eating my lunch or whatever." Like whatever that guy's saying, I'm sure that he's just going through an episode. So that's
Right,
just a bigger version of this.
right, right. And you be noticing all the articles that I pulled up. Big fat headline: conspiracy theorist says this about Trump and Kamala, and it does, and it still holds weight when people say conspiracy theorists. It takes the, but I feel like even more so, like even when they do that now, we're in an era of alternative news, and it has the biggest spotlight than it ever has before. So when you have a fact check or somebody says conspiracy theory, they're automatically thinking differently. They're like, okay, this is the mainstream media. We have social media. We know what's up. We know what you're trying to do. So I think people are waking up for sure. And that's the thing. Like when you have a following like yourself or me or anybody else who does what we do, we have a following for a reason. And that's the thing. Because if it was all bullshit and nobody believed it, then nobody would even care. Like you said, going back to eating your lunch and say, okay, fuck these guys. But no, the media at large and the system, I guess you want to say, no, they're trying to control for a reason, and people are like, well, I'm going to think otherwise now. You guys are poisoning our food. You guys are programming us through TV shows and movies and everything else. I see right through it. Let me show you one other thing that's crazy too. You may or may not know this about 9/11, but let me try to blow your mind real quick.
Okay. I
So,
honestly, I've got an interesting relationship with 9/11 because I was in the military in boot camp when it happened, and I wasn't even told that 9/11 happened until 2 weeks after it had happened, after when I was going through graduation. So I was just like, wait, what? You know what I mean? Like what's that? The world's different now. Like I went in and it was, we didn't have to take off our shoes and now we do. And it was weird because it was kind of told to me about how everyone was bonding now. Like everyone's American, everyone's patriotic as hell. So yeah,
right.
this is the Matrix passport.
Oh yeah. So you've seen this, right?
Oh, of course, yeah. I've got
Well, if
one
you
for
haven't
you
seen it,
actually
if
too.
nobody hasn't seen it, a lot of people may or may not seen it. Every time I show up, people are like, "No way!" So in the movie Matrix, which came out, I want to say '99, um, this is his passport. So when Neo was getting interrogated by Agent Smith, he was going through his paperwork and he was saying like, "Oh, you're a hacker. One of you're living a double life. You work at a promising software company. You're a coder. Stick with that, Mr. Anderson." This Neo character that you're playing, though, the hacker, you need to get rid of him. Kill that whole persona now. And it was his passport that popped up really quick. He was going through his paperwork, and this is his passport. Passport. Look when it expires. September 11th, 2001. You can't make this up. When I first saw this, I was like, no way, this has to be Photoshop. I go to the movie, and sure enough, lo and behold, it's there. It's upside down, but it's there. And I'm like, damn, like, why? What is that? That can't be a coincidence. And then along with all the other things that they've been showing us for the past 33 years, up until when it happened. But yeah.
And not to mention too, this might be a silly one, but this comes up a lot in older conspiracy lore that the CIA loves putting their trademark all over everything, including putting their acronym in as many places they can. So look,
Mm.
you've got CIA in the word capital, you've got CIA in city in USA, and then you've got another CIA in capital city at the bottom. So you've kind of got, and so this is one that if maybe you've heard of this one, this one's even a deeper cut. So this was a spin-off of the show X-Files, which was historically about government conspiracy, and it got a lot of people into thinking about Bigfoot and aliens and different dimensions and government corruption, right? Well, there was a spin-off show because in X-Files, Mulder and Scully, specifically Mulder, he had these like three guys that he would go and consult with called the Lone Gunmen, and they were conspiracy theorists. Like they were the online dudes that like knew all the weird theories out there, and he would go and like hit them up to do deep dives into stuff. So on the pilot episode of the Lone Gunman series, which aired in 2001 in March, right? So months before 9/11 happened, they specifically talk about a U.S. government plot to hijack an airliner and to fly it into the World Trade Center. So I mean, this
No
is like
way.
the literal plot, and you can't erase this because it aired months before September 11th happened.
That's insane. I've never heard. This is a deep cut. Wow. That's a deep cut. Holy shit.
And I would almost argue that the series wasn't bad, and in this being the pilot episode probably destroyed it because it's like, oh, we can't have that out there. No way. You know?
Right.
So it hurt extra for me because I was like, man, this was our chance at this cool X-Files spinoff that never really took off the ground because ironically September 11th happened.
So it was just the pilot, like the full show never came out.
I don't know how many episodes they ended up making, but yeah, this was the pilot episode and if you know anything about TV pilots, that's usually where you pack in like the biggest, boldest punch of here's what this series could be about. So it's like, you know, what an amazing pilot to say, hey, our series is about predicting actual, you know, political operations.
Wow.
Like the creators of the Lone Gunman could not have had advanced knowledge of 9/11. It's just a coincidence. Go back to watching American Gladiators, everybody. You know, there's nothing to be alarmed of. The government has it under control.
See, and that's the thing. Here's the thing, like you said about TV. It aired March 4th, months before, but when they shot it was even before that, which probably was maybe 2000, maybe at least, like, and it may be well into 2000 before, because you know you have to shoot the pilot, it has to get greenlit, it has to go through a whole process. Like
people got paid, like paychecks were paid before they started shooting most of this, you know. So this was like a huge investment of time, money, and effort by teams of people.
This can easily be 2 years before. Easy. When you have to write it, get it greenlit, funded, cast it, shoot it. Like it's a process for this stuff. It's not like they just come up with the idea and then, hey, let's turn on the cameras. Like this is probably a year and a half, 2 years in the making, at least. So it's a coincidence? How? No way, bro.
What makes it particularly egregious to me is that as soon as 9/11 did happen, some of the official stories that kept getting pumped out by the White House and elsewhere was kind of like, we couldn't have predicted this. No one had ever thought that this could happen. But not only did, you know, so many movies and TV shows predict it happening, like this Lone Gunman, like identically to how it kind of went down. But they were running a drill the morning of, I believe a year or two before that, they specifically had a full desktop operation where they like simulate a tragedy playing out in a controlled environment, with pamphlets printed with actual planes flying into the World Trade Centers, right? So like, and this, the reason I bring up the Lone Gunman and that operation that was going on is that those ones don't require you to like close your eye and look sideways at like a 9/11 ad in a Simpsons frame and be like, oh, maybe that means this thing. Like, no, they were literally talking about hijacking a plane, flying at the World Trade Center. There's no reading between the lines or esoteric.
It was like clear as day. Like probably the most like descriptive, on point, accurate scenario when it comes to like movies and media and TV. That's the most direct correlation I've ever seen. Like, and even with this one, like Die Hard, this was like 88, 89, 2 buildings, and then you got the plane, you know, the explosion at the top. And even though I believe that's 1 building, but they make it look like 2, like very telling. And there's a number of stuff like The Simpsons and even a Wonder Woman comic they had, a Mad TV, Um, I'll pull that up real quick before we get out of here. Uh, Mad TV 9/11. Let's see if it pulls up. I might have to. Oh no, Mad TV or Mad Magazine. Sorry.
I don't know
Let's
if
see.
I've seen this one.
Yeah, I put it in my video. Let's see. It might be kind of hard to find. Let me see. They may. I have a video of it, but it shows.
Oh, look at that. There's a Max Headroom Mad Magazine. You just specify.
Oh yeah.
It's the
Oh yeah.
same
There.
thing.
Yeah. Max Headroom. Yeah. That's crazy. Oh wow. That's insane. But yeah, there's one that shows him in between two buildings, and they're like planes are crashing into him. It's wild. But then Wonder Woman. Uh, I don't know what issue it was. Let me see. I'll just put buildings. I'll try to see if it comes up. I might have to put comic. So it's not this one. It's close to that one. But they have another one. I did a video. Like they're deep cuts. They're deep cuts for sure. But it's similar to like this one. But it's literally two buildings. It's two. She's in between two buildings, and like the planes are crashing. Like it's crazy.
Another one that is interesting to me is there was an album from the Coop called Party Music that was originally supposed to come out the week of September 11th in 2001. But yeah, that one on the top left. This album was it was done recording just like the TV show, already done recording everything. And it was going to come out that week, and then the 9/11 actually happened, and they pushed this back 2 months, and they changed the cover of it. But look at this. I mean,
That's
how
crazy.
what's the threshold for how many coincidences until it's worth considering that there's something more to it? Is it 3? Is it 7? Is it 50?
I
Because
don't know.
9/11 is one of those things where there are literally 50. And actually, there's another one of my favorite. Look in the top middle is the Supertramp album with the lady holding the tray of food up there. That also has, look, if you were to reverse that, the P and the U actually spell out 9/11 if you flip
Oh
that backward.
shit.
Right?
That's crazy. I haven't seen that one.
And
That's
then some people even push it further and say like the orange juice is like fire, like inferno, like bursting out of the. But even without that, if you just see the top of it and flip it, yeah, it literally spells out 9/11.
and it's right above the buildings. Literally. Man. There's no way. I don't believe in coincidence, you guys. Like, no fucking way.
I
Those are deep
almost
cuts. I haven't seen those either. Good
This
call. I haven't
this
seen
kind of
those.
stuff always makes me feel that maybe it's not entirely planned and orchestrated. It's more like there's a frequency you can tune into, or there's like a
Yeah.
pattern in the source code, and that
That's what I think.
you don't have to like orchestrate the things. You just got to know that something's going to happen that day, and if you can be the one that controls it, just like Max Headroom. Like once the genie's out of the bottle, like, oh, we'll just take that energy. We'll just make our own Max Headroom, and that'll divert all the energy. It's just like the King Kill ritual. You just take something else that's working and use that for yourself.
Right. Damn. Good call. Yeah, I believe that too, to be honest. I believe that as well. So I think that they put enough out and have predictive programming or whatever it is. And with a little bit of control and a little bit of manifestation from everybody else, it kind of comes together. So yeah, that's those are good, great catches. I'm gonna have to do a part two for sure. But we're gonna go ahead and get out of here. My computer's about to die. I didn't even notice. I don't want to get cut off. But let everybody know where they can find you.
Yeah, please. Paranoidamerican.com. You can find a bunch of comics and all kinds of awesome merch and toys and stickers. And I also just dropped a comic book about Stanley Kubrick directing the moon landings that you can get at nasacomic.com, which is going to be a lot of fun. So yeah, hit me up, Paranoid American. We have fun. We like to do all the same conspiracies as everyone else, but without any of the doom and gloom, and we joke about it and we make comic books about it.
Nice, nice. Speaking of Stanley Kubrick, real quick, he actually did Space Odyssey, the one we were talking about, 2001: Space Odyssey. So that's another fun tidbit as well. So a lot of people don't know that. A lot of people don't know that he besides that movie, he did The Shining, he did um Clockwork
Yeah,
Orange,
Clockwork Orange, Eyes
and
Wide
then the moon
Shut, Full
landing.
Metal Jacket.
And then he did the moon landing. So if you notice in The Shining, the kid has an Apollo sweater. So he's showing you through the movie, like he had Apollo like rocket ship and all
Well,
that
yeah,
stuff.
and not just does he have the sweater, but there's a scene where he literally is standing on a launch pad design, that famous Kubrick like pattern on the carpet of The Shining, but from an aerial view of Kennedy Space Center, it's exactly what the launch pad looks like, and he's playing with little trucks that look like how trucks would be lined up outside the rocket, and then when they show Danny stand up, he doesn't stand up naturally. He stands up so it perfectly looks like that Apollo 11 rocket ship is blasting off. And there's if you know anything about Kubrick, he didn't just like, oh yeah, that kind of looked good. We'll go with that. Like
It
he
was
would
very
meticulously plan. He would spend 8 hours on that one shot to make sure it
right.
was exactly what it needed to be.
Exactly. Exactly. So yeah, go check those out for sure. But anyways, make sure you guys go to maverickapproach.com. Also go to conspired.tv. So we're gonna be doing a lot of stuff. So stay tuned. You'll see this guy on Conspired TV. I'll just let the cow out the bag. But yeah, he's gonna be coming over to Conspired TV. So make sure you guys go subscribe today. We have a lot of stuff in the works, but go ahead, click the links below, and make sure you guys subscribe today and keep your eyes peeled. And then I'll see you guys next time. Make sure you question everything. Peace.